East and west unite their greetings, as on soft June zephyrs born, absent Teri's thoughts fly homewards on each common riding morn. Every June, as thousands of Teris pack their picnics for their weekend on the Wester Heather, there's exiles in all four corners of the world that would be honouring to be here, in amongst the rain folk. Whether they're in Chicago or Carlisle, Melbourne or Melrose, something's stopping them from being here in the grey old toon, for the single maist greatest day out, onywhere. But there's also them that do make the journey, them that start off earlier and get home later, them that make sure nothing's stopping them being here in the grey old toon for the single maist greatest day out, onywhere. June Arnot is somebody that's fond of selling both their positions. Like many Hawick folk, she has umpteen stories and tales to tell of her time at Hawick Common Riding. So I sat down with June to talk through her experiences and memories of being here in the grey old toon for the single maist greatest day out, onywhere. What are your earliest recollections of the Common Riding, and how did your family celebrate each year?
Well, how did we and how do we celebrate the Common Riding each year? It's easy, really. It's been at as many different occasions as we can possibly manage. The picking night, the ride-outs, the chases, Common Riding days, up at the Mare and the ball. So a whole collection of different things that we try and get to. My first Common Riding though was when I was 6 months old. And I will have been at a bit of every Common Riding since then. Maybe not the whole thing, but a bit of every Common Riding that's been since then. With my mum and dad, with Ernie, my husband, and then as a family with the kids, and now it's the grandkids. But we were always surrounded by family and friends as well. We live in Haddington nowadays, and in East Lothian, but my roots are quite firmly set here in Hawick. It's here that was the catalyst for my love of the outdoors and the hills, and in fact the hills are my therapy and my relaxation, I suppose. Without a doubt, I identify with Will Ogilvie when he talks about the comfort of the hills. Our children, Callum, Cameron and Kirsty, have many memories of heading from East Lothian to Hawick straight from school for a Thursday night chase, and then the next Thursday being up at 3:30 in the morning to get ready to come to the morning chase. But then we all had to be back in East Lothian for school that day as well. And we usually just managed the Saturday of the Common Riding because getting off work and school was difficult. But Saturday was fine, and Saturday actually was the only day that I could get a ticket for the shows. Well, I got away with that white lie for a long time. The kids really thought I had to have tickets to get to the shows. But a vivid and unforgettable moment, I suppose, happened on a Saturday of the Common Riding. As usual, Mum and I met my dad at the greeting dinner to go to the shows and then to the circus with the cornet. The cornet on his right and left were kind of duty-bound and encouraged to join in with the circus activities. But this particular night, the cornet was invited by the knife thrower to be part of the show. The result being that the cornet was, and his green coat was skewered to the rotating round thing that he was fixed to. And I can remember vividly, even now when I was quite wee, that horrendous, and then absolute silence. Everything was okay, but oh my goodness, it was a horrendous occasion.
What are your special memories over the years? Have you had any funny stories?
Well, my special memories, I suppose, are a kind of eclectic mix. There's that kind of bubbling excitement that just is there, that anticipation and the preparation and the events that lead up to the common riding and the history and the ceremony of the common riding itself. And it's that togetherness of family and community that's important. For me in the past, I have memories of the preparation with Uncle Tuck at the stables, preparing horses, preparing tack, the haps, the ribbons, doing the manes and tails in pleats with the ribbons. That was my job. And the excitement of the sight and the sound and the smells of the horses as well, seeing them heading out for their ride-outs and getting safely back. But I also remember many occasions when my dad, on his horse Duke, was catapulted off in Pilmer Field repeatedly. And of course, there was always a new common riding frock, which was an important occasion for me. But out in front, I've got two real memories of Jimmy Arnot and the Drum and Fife Band, and Isabel Arnot and her bus to the mayor. That was a tradition that she started in the mid-50s and went right on to 1977, so a long while. So taking me from being a child to an adult with my own family. But firstly, the Drum and Fife band. Obviously, they were my dad's role as leader of the Drum and Fife band. That was a huge bit of our common riding, and actually was the timetable that we kept to during the common riding. I remember the distinctive uniform they had in the early days with a tight collar. I suppose it stopped the rain getting down their neck, but it was the uniform that if it was platching wet, it weighed an absolute ton. It must have been a nightmare to actually march with that on. I remember my dad winding thread round his fife, one half of his fife, so that the two bits fitted together really neatly. And the timetable he had to keep to, the official occasions, starting with the picking night. But a memory that always raises a smile was Dad teaching the young lads, the new lads, the fife. And practice night was Tuesday night in our house at Dalkeith Place. The boys came in, so Mum and I escaped to Auntie Mary Armstrong's house, 2 doors along. My Granny Arnot and my Auntie Bell, actually my dad's Auntie Bell, joined us. We had a cup of tea, a biscuit, a bit of blether, and then we watched Emergency Ward 10. We didn't have a telly at that time. But a very important abiding memory of my dad in the band was his ability to find me in a crowd and wave his eyes. And that's what I used to describe it as. He just had this look and I knew he'd seen us. And that was special for me. And now Mum's bus on the Friday and Saturday to the mayor. Well, it was a military operation. The process started just after the previous common riding had finished. It took that long to organise. The bus had to be booked. The folk that were wanting to come on the bus had to get their seats booked. And then my mum collected the money on a weekly basis so that it was over a long period of time. So it wasn't a lot of money every week. The bus picked folk up close to their houses. And Auntie Jessie lived at 2, we lived at 8, and my granny was at 13 Dalkeith Place. So we had to take all our stuff, the picnic, the flasks, the various amounts of clothing to cover whatever the weather was going to be, the tarpaulins, the rugs, you name it, picnic chairs, was carted along to London Crescent, and the bus would duly appear. And my mum, I can remember her and the driver being inside the boot of the bus, packing the stuff, just so that we could get back out again quickly. The bus then took a circuitous route, a pre-planned route, around Hawick to pick up the aunties and the cousins and the extended family. We were away up to Burnfoot and goodness knows where else. But it meant that the driver actually had to do quite a bit of bus manoeuvring to get round the terraces and through all these places. But with everybody on board, off we would go up to the Mayor, and then the singing would start in the bus. What a joy that was. At the Mayor, the bus would get parked, and us young folk would be desperate to get off, but the oldies wanted out to get their special space down the front of the bus with their wee picnic chairs. So we had to just be calm and quiet until we could get out. But you know, even when I was young, and really young, I suppose, it was that heart-stopping, breathtaking view from the Mayor, from what to me, even nowadays, seems like the top of the world. Looking out onto that magnificent vista that there is, I still get that same feeling now. Mum and Dad always were watching out for Dad arriving because he had 2 jobs to do. He was in the band, but he was also part of the committee for the races. So he had to get changed out his band top, just the top half, in a shirt and tie and his sports coat to be on race duty. But no matter the weather, we always had a grand time. And I remember snow, actually, one year, and my mum and Auntie Jessie and I were sheltering under a table in front of the fairway tent, just watching the world go by. Mind you, the view from up there and close to the fairway tent often meant that as youngsters we were watching folks stotting and their legs looking a bit jelly-like. That was always hilarious to watch these things. The 2 days actually just seemed to merge in a happy haze, I suppose you could say. Then we journeyed home in the bus for a repeat performance the morning. It was easier, although it was earlier, but we did a practice on the Friday, so I think it always went smoothly, I dare say. I've got a different notion to perhaps others. But there was a sadness always on the Saturday that this was the common riding coming to an end for another year. But then you picked yourself up and you kind of had the memories of that year, but also the anticipation for next year coming round.
What would you say is your most favourite part of the common riding, and what makes you keep coming back?
Favourite part of the common riding? Well, the colour busing has to be up there. Because it's special, it's ceremony, it's tradition, it's splendour and spectacle, I suppose. And for me, it was also the involvement of the drum and fife band in the colour busing. That particular ceremony is an example of the importance of history and community, and a showcase, if you like, for the talent that we have in Hawick, and for the words and the music that are associated with Hawick and that it's unique for, actually. But for me, it's also making your own history And we do that year on year in our own traditions, like the Friday morning meet up with the drum and fife band with Burnett and Libby at the Westport for rum and milk. Originally to remember my dad, who was leader of the drum and fife band, but in more recent years to remember Ronnie Nichol, who took over the band from my dad. But there's the other history that we'll make at the Chase, at the same spot at the Chase. We sometimes have to trim the hawthorn so that we can see the cornet coming. The same spot at St Leonard's. Both of these occasions were good friends, Catherine and Ronnie Hodgins and their daughter Lynn. At the Mayor with aunties and cousin Dorothy. That poignancy of the hand and back of the flag, which always brings a tear. But it's the impromptu things as well, just the happen chance things, the collection of folk gathered together who suddenly burst into song, and the face that you catch that you haven't seen for years, and suddenly you're chatting like you'd never been away. All of these things are the essence of the common riding for me.
Thanks to June for making the trip down the A7 back to Paradise for a lovely chat, which I'm sure you all found interesting. It's very interesting to hear how different people celebrate the common riding each year. Keep an eye out on social media and the Common Riding website to hear similar interviews or to watch this one again.